On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, Jeff Bezos just sent his mom to the scrapyard. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to this episode of What's Going On with Shipping. If you're new to the channel, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they go on. So, Jeff Bezos sending his mom to the scrapyard. Now, I should note, it's not really his mom he's sending to the scrapyard, but the ship he named for his mom, the Jacqueline. Jeff Bezos, who we all know, owner of Amazon, but more importantly, the owner of Blue Origins, which is one of the space companies in the lines of SpaceX and a few others, owned and operated a vessel, or I should say owned a vessel, they never really operated it, that they bought from an outfit called Stena Lines. And the plan was to convert this vessel into a platform in which their Blue Origin rocket would land upon. The vessel has been down in Pensacola, Florida. In fact, I saw it last year when I was down in Pensacola. But news just came out today that Jacqueline is heading to the scrapyard in Brownsville, Texas. So this is by our buddy Mike Scholler over at G Captain with this story yesterday that Blue Origin's rocket landing ship named after Jeff Bezos' mom was sent to the scrapyard. The ship, which had been purchased from Stena Lines back in 2018 into a rocket landing ship, was basically sitting down there in Pensacola at the offshore inland marine yard. And in a christening ceremony that was done back in December of 2020, here's the event here where he announced the name of the vessel to be the Jacqueline, had his mom come in and christen the vessel. Big, huge event, obviously, to do it. Had it on his Instagram post. But obviously, the vessel is now not being used because the ship was towed out of port the other day at the end of a tow line behind the Julie F. And the Julie F is a tugboat. This is her position right here. You'll see her out of Pensacola heading for Brownsville, Texas, which is right there on the border between the United States and Mexico. That is, Brownsville is one of the few sites in the United States that does vessel recycling, vessel scrapping. The plan for this vessel was very interesting. One of the things that they were going to do is launch their rockets out of the facility at Cape Canaveral, Cape Kennedy in Florida, the old NASA launching site, and then off the coast be able to land the reusable element of their rocket. And so they purchased this vessel from Stena Lines. So the vessel was actually officially known as the LPV before being renamed for Jeff Bezos's mom, the Jacqueline. Prior to that, she was owned by Stena, actually built in Italy back in 1997, and she had a very kind of checkered history, this vessel. She was initially laid down as the Stena Hispanic, but was obtained by the British Ministry of Defense to become a part of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, what was then named the Sea Chieftain. The ship was launched in 1998, but she was never completed. As a matter of fact, the shipyard she was in suffered a bankruptcy. In 2022, the vessel was obtained again by Stena and completed, and then she operated as a ferry basically from 2004 to 2018. That's at that which point she was obtained by Blue Origin for use as this downrange rocket landing ship where she would recover the booster portion of the Blue Origin rocket, which you're seeing here in this video. Very similar to what we see being done with SpaceX. However, the ship was not converted, and there's a couple of reasons why we think this has happened. So why did Jeff Bezos scrap his mother? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, Tesla is, or SpaceX, I should say, is using a barge, tug and barge. That is much more economical. It's cheaper than actually having to run a vessel the size of the Jacqueline. And so cost is one issue. Second, they were talking about automating this vessel. This vessel was going to be completely automated, almost crewless. And one of the reasons for that is you don't want to have a crew on this vessel when a booster rocket is landing on it in case it explodes, basically. So you don't want to risk this. That's one of the reasons they use the barge for SpaceX. There were issues with the autonomous nature of this vessel. The third thing is this thing is registered in the Marshall Islands. And I have to say, there's a bit of an issue here about whether or not these vessels would have to be reflagged into the US registry. And since this vessel was built overseas, it doesn't conform with the Jones Act. Under the Jones Act, Section 27 of the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, if you move cargo between US ports, you have to be US owned. Does capturing a booster rocket from space, which is launched in Florida, constitute a Jones Act transfer? I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that. However, I assume there were issues associated with this. And so the decision has been made basically to opt for the barge option, which is a lot easier to do. Barges are unmanned. There's no personnel on board. You can use an American tug to go get it and pull it back in. You avoid the Jones Act issues entirely. You don't have to worry about autonomy because the barge can be basically, dynamic positioning, so it remains in place at a fixed point with thrusters and GPS control. So you alleviate all those issues. And so, unfortunately, to Jacqueline Bezos, her namesake is now heading off to be turned into recyclable material. And maybe she'll get a barge named after her. I don't know. I don't know what Jeff is going to do with that, but we'll be interested to see what happens. Interesting story. We don't get a chance to talk about this too often. The role of shipping in space is really fascinating, I have to tell you. Part of my doctoral research was researching the vessels that provided the uplink communication for the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions. Most people don't know that Neil Armstrong almost lost his life in Gemini 8 when it began to tumble. His only uplink was via a ship in the middle of I think it was the Indian Ocean, was able to provide the relay up to him. And so you had ships stationed all around the world to provide that uplink communication. Now it's all provided by satellites. But ships have played an important role. The Saturn V was transported by vessels from the West Coast to Cape Canaveral for their launching on a specially designed ship, the Point Barrow. And we still have a vessel that does that, moving rockets from Huntsville, Alabama, all the way to the launch complex in Florida. So shipping plays a very unique role when it comes to space travel. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, share it across social media. Hopefully I don't lose my Amazon account now for this video. Hopefully Jeff has got a good sense of humor about this. But if not, be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until then, this is Sal signing off.